Okay, so for this project, you're going to be doing a digital illustration, and the topic is going to be a self-portrait of yourself. Now, last week we looked at artists, and we also looked at artists who created self-portraits of themselves. Now, this one you're going to be taking a photo, and there's a couple of things I want you to think about as you're taking the photo of yourself. And we're going to go through a few different ways that you could compose yourself and think about what expresses your self, your inner self, your being of who you see yourself as. So here is a picture that I took of myself. Notice that what's interesting about this picture is the eyes. And the eyes are real important in self-portraits. They are, as people say, the entry to the soul of a person. And then from your photo, you will then do a photo illustration with how I ended my self-portrait illustration. And you can see that I've added a lot of Photoshop elements to it. So you could think about posing yourself in an interesting manner with the shot and the camera down below. You will be cutting yourself out in the self-portrait. Take a pose in an interesting way. Here the camera is higher up. Here we have a very athletic look. You don't have to be engaged in the actual activity. You just have to make the movement because you're going to cut yourself out. So let's look at just a few self-portraits. And I'm going to scroll down. Okay, a great self-portrait is looking into the camera. We want to stay away from something like this image here, because in this image, even though we have a self-portrait, we wouldn't be able to cut it out. And likewise with this one, we couldn't cut out the image. Here we have another self-portrait looking into the camera. If you wanted to go for a further, I would stay away from a self-portrait here, because remember the idea is that we're going to cut ourselves out. And this really wouldn't give you a whole lot to work with, so I would go a little closer. Here would be a better pose. Now notice in this pose here that nothing is obscuring the person. So we don't want any objects in front of you, because that would make it impossible for us to cut you out as the self-portrait. So you could do a great expression on your face, right? And then have the photo. Maybe you would just like a close-up of your eye. Self-portraits do not have to be the whole body. So maybe the self-portrait is just your hand. Maybe it's really close of your eye. Here's another great self-portrait. We want to stay away from adding an image on top. You can do that in Photoshop later on. So we just want your full face. Here would be a great way. Here is another great self-portrait. We can cut that out. Again, maybe only revealing parts of you. If you want to obscure yourself, we'll do that in Photoshop, and then you will have to pose like there is something in front of you, and we will add that object in Photoshop. Again, just a simple self-portrait right on looking into the camera is great. You can even take your own portrait if you so desired. Again, here is a 3/4, so you don't have to look into the camera. You can go and sit down and have someone take your photo. It could just be of your head. You don't have to look at the camera at all. Again, looking directly into the camera. Maybe you have like the coolest shoes, and so that's where your self-portrait is about the shoes you wear. Maybe you like a full body shot. You can try an action shot. Here's a great shot. Sit down on the ground and have the photo taken of you, and that's going to give you a very big perspective look. Man. Here, this kind of idea of smoke, we can always add that into our Photoshop. So maybe you want to think of an action that's going to happen. Project. The project is going to be a self-portrait of you. And in that self-portrait, you're going to include images of your culture, which are art objects. So in this one, you can see the art objects that are floating above me. In this one here, I have some art objects that are rotating in the air. I have some fire taking place. The photo is not great, so I've doctored it up into Photoshop just to kind of see what you can do. You can take your photo. You, of course, will cut it out, as you can see. You can have the art object coming off here. But the idea is a self-portrait of you that you will then use Photoshop to add effects to. And you will include fire or water or earth into your photo illustration. But the first thing that we want to start with is your self-portrait. And so half of you are going to be going tomorrow. So that's the left side of the class. So when you come in, you will each be giving digital cameras for your groups, and then you will be going out and taking your photos.